Jake, thank you so much for joining me. And I'm going to start this podcast the way I start every episode of Spolitics, and that is by asking you, name a moment or an athlete that made you love sports.
Oh, wow. Mike Schmidt made me love sports in 79 and 80 as a little boy watching the Philadelphia Phillies. I confess also when Rose came to the Phillies, I didn't know all the stuff about him, but just I remember when he was with the Reds and searching around and reading my dad's Sports Illustrated, and there was an issue that had him like wearing the hats of like a bunch of teams that might take him, and I was really hoping, and then he became the Phillies first baseman. And I think that was 79, and then they won the World Series in 80. So that whole 1980 season for a little boy was just really magical. It was a great time in Philly sports. The Eagles were in the Super Bowl, and I think in like January 81 or something like that. And then, of course, under Dr. J, the Sixers won the championship in 83. So that whole period spoiled me. And then there was a long period of nothing. But anyway, so it was a great time to be a little boy into sports.
Yeah, that's pretty good run. You had 79, 80, as you said, 81, then 83. I was like, that's a dream period as a Philly sports fan. But as you said, you've also gone through some
Oh
misery
yeah.
as a Philadelphia sports fan. So how do you cope through those times when Philly sports isn't quite doing as well as it should be?
So there's a bunch of Philadelphia diasporans that we all text and email and have certain rules about unbridled optimism, which is not permitted. It's jinxing. And it's also just part of it. It's funny because I have successfully raised my kids, even though we live in DC, to be Eagles fans. They're not really into baseball or basketball per se, but they're into football. Both my daughter and my son, and it occurred to me last year when the Eagles completely fell apart, and I think they had the same. Well, they were 10-1, and then they just like
Hmm.
lost 5 or 6 games in a row. It was just
Right.
absolutely abysmal. And it occurred to me that my son had only really known the Eagles as a team that brings pleasure, generally speaking, because of the 2017 and then 2018 Super Bowl. And then they were in a different Super Bowl, which was painful, but at least they were in the Super Bowl. And it occurred to me like he really doesn't know what it's like to be a Philly sports fan because he is really just seeing the Eagles as a dominant team. But it's just part of life, right? It's one of the reasons we all love sports so much is because it is such a metaphor for life and the fact that most of us, even if we're really good at what we do, don't win the Super Bowl, don't win the Cy Young Award, don't win the NBA championship. That for the best laid plans, like Joel Embiid is still struggling with whatever. It is the life of it's. It's the life of a Philly fan. It's really the life of a fan. Because it's not as though Mets fans and Yankee fans and Dodger fans and everybody doesn't go through the same thing, but um, there is something gritty about the Philadelphia kind of like downtrodden, chip on our shoulder, wait till next year attitude that is part of it. There's a reason why they play clips from Rocky and music from Rocky at every Philadelphia sports game, and it's just that underdog feeling is part of the ethos. And also, Rocky lost. That's
Yeah,
people
that's
people
true.
forget that he didn't win till Rocky 2.
No, that's important perspective. Now, you said that having a sense of pessimism is part of being a Philly sports fan. So, how do you feel right now? Because as of the recording of this podcast, the Eagles have won 9 in a row. They are
You're jinxing it.
solidly.
You're jinxing it as you
See,
speak.
I know, but I have to bring up the fact that they're
They
doing
barely
quite
won
well.
yesterday.
I
They
know they
barely
barely beat
won.
the Panthers.
They barely beat
Yes.
one of the worst teams in the league. Barely. And it was up until like I thought because I went up with my son, I thought, that there was a chance we could leave like 3 or 4 minutes early just to beat traffic outside the link. But no, we were there to the last second because It wasn't clear until Philly recovered the ball with 28 seconds left that they were going to win. It was not clear, and it was very possible that they were going to lose that game. By the way, just like the Super Bowl, people forget, but Brady was driving towards the end zone at the end of that game in 2018. And it was like, we're going to lose. We're going to lose in the last 30 seconds of this game. But we didn't. We didn't. We didn't.
Yes, you didn't. And right now, I would say Philly and the Detroit Lions have kind of separated themselves from other NFC teams. So, how are you processing this season for the
I'm
Eagles?
expecting that disappointment.
So you're
Jamel,
you're
I'm
not
expecting.
you're not looking at this team and saying, "Wow, they're great." We
No.
might be in
Oh
another
my
Super
God.
Bowl.
No.
Jake, are
Oh
you
my
insane?
God. No. No. And I have
What?
to say, and I don't know if you as an African American or you as a woman feel this, but I as a Jew feel this, which is there is something in being Jewish that's just like expecting the worst. It's just drilled into your head, expecting the
That's a
worst.
fair point.
And
As a black
I don't
woman,
know.
I've definitely learned this.
Yeah, I don't know if as a woman or as an African American you feel the same way, but there's just like something like, okay, what's coming around the corner? And there's something about being from Philly that's like that too. It's different, obviously, but there is just something of skeptical or anxiety inducing about, yeah, no, I'm not. And by the way, we won the game, but the takeaway was, what's wrong with our passing game? What is
Right.
Jalen going to do to improve his? Look, we all love him. We all want him to succeed. We, all that. But that didn't look like a team that was going to win the Super Bowl. So yeah, no, we're you know it's nerve wracking.
Okay, so you're not you're expecting to be disappointed. I feel like this is just a defense mechanism for you that you're trying.
Maybe
You don't want to get you're invested, but you don't want to get your heart broken. So you're already preparing for a heartbreak that may not even come.
100%, 100%. And by the way, it's not just the Eagles; it's the Phillies,
Yeah,
it's the Six. I mean, the Sixers. It's just like that. My heart's already broken, but
you're right.
but the Phillies broke my heart this year too. And it's like, but I'm not angry about it. I'm not angry. I'm not an angry Philly fan. Although that is the stereotype of Philly fans. Like, I know they're all doing their best. I'm not mad at Bryce Harper. I'm not mad at any of the managers or the owners or anything like that. It's just, this is sports, just like it's life. It's
Yeah.
life.
Oh, well, are you because I've heard this. I have a lot of other Philly sports fans who are friends of mine, and but are you a little bit angry? Maybe angry isn't the word. Maybe that's too strong. But a little bit disappointed in Joel Embiid because at this point in his career, certainly entering this season, he wasn't in the best shape. You know, he's taken a lot of criticism in Philadelphia. He has been suspended for trying to fight a reporter in the locker room who called out some of the
Yep.
issues that people have had. So how do you feel about Joel Embiid?
So I'll just say that I want him to rise to the occasion. I want him to rise to the moment. And there is an entire city that wants to love him so much. And he kind of doesn't want it. And there's just, look, I mean, we went through this with Harden too. Like, some people act like champions and some people don't. And um, Jalen Hurts acts like a champion. Saquon Barkley is a god. I mean, that sideline clip of him telling Nick Sirianni that no, I don't need to break my record for the game. Let the young guys eat. Is so moving. He wasn't performing. He didn't know that the cameras were on him. Unless he's the best actor in the world. And like that selflessness and appreciation. Look, I feel this way about my job too. And I'm not comparing myself to Jalen Hurts or Saquon Barkley, but like, I'm incredibly fortunate. I'm really lucky. I get to do something I love. I am compensated for it in a very nice way, and uh, the best thing I can do, and I don't always succeed, and I don't always achieve it, but the best thing I can do is try to express appreciation for it and be nice to other people and this and that. And I'm looking over at my staff to see if they're giving me a side eye on that. So, but to set an example and to appreciate it, and be kind to my, to the other anchors and the other correspondents and this and that, and to try to be a leader. And again, I'm not comparing what I'm doing to any of these incredibly talented people, but there is something about appreciating a rarefied existence. And I look at Jalen Hurts and I look at Saquon Barkley and I look at Bryce Harper, and I've been lucky enough to like meet uh, and like be text buddies and go to like a game or two a year with Mike Schmidt, like one of my childhood heroes. And like these are just, they have great perspective and they really understand how lucky they are. And I don't get that vibe from Joel. And if I'm wrong, I'm happy to apologize and be proven wrong. But I just don't see that. It doesn't seem like he's being that leader, and I want him to be. Phil, one of the most remarkable things in Philly sports that ever happened was when Trey Turner was having a horrible slump. And I think somebody did a documentary movie about this, and I have yet to see it. I'm not sure if it's come out yet, but and for some reason somebody decided to lead Philadelphia Phillies fans in cheering him instead of booing him, which is more our vibe. We're booers, and it worked. And Trey Turner like had a great season, didn't make the World Series, but had a great season. I think this is last season. I don't think it was this season. And like, I don't know. I would just like to see a little bit more. Like, there is that willingness to cheer for Joel Embiid. There is, and not winning a championship is. Dr. J only won one. I mean, like, you know, Barkley won none. Barkley won no championships for us, but he's beloved because he worked so hard for the Sixers. So that's a long answer for your question.
No, I mean I get what you're saying. Is that it does feel that Joel Embiid is sort of it's him versus everybody. Like he's kind of fighting the world a little bit, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he's had a number of injuries in his career. I think some of it is just internally battling his own level of disappointment in how things have turned out. And that's not to erase him being an MVP and all these other things, but it
Yeah,
is to say that like there is an expectation. But I think his behavior is the part that Philly fans are most upset about. Not necessarily. I mean, the championships, of course, you guys want to win, but
right,
yeah, Allen Iverson, another guy, couldn't be more loved in Philadelphia. Never
right.
won a
Never
championship for
won
the
a
city.
championship, but tried so hard and never, at least, and maybe this is revisionist history, but I don't remember him acting, I don't remember him blaming anyone other than himself for
Correct.
any of his shortcomings. And it's just like, that's why he's still beloved. And it's about um, appreciating the opportunity he's been given and rising to it. And look, he's young. I mean,
Hmm.
I'm 55, so perspective comes a little easier at 55 than it does at 30. At 30, you think, why doesn't everybody appreciate how great I am and how hard I work? And then you realize, like, just because that's just not how the world works. Like, that's the world is about what you can provide for them, not what it can provide for you. And so there's just a maturing that needs to happen. Um, and sometimes great players. Like, I mean, I think Jalen Hurts gets it, and he's like 23. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it's not just age.
Yeah. Sports, loving a team, a city in your case as well, it comes with its own level of emotional upheaval because of the ups and the downs. But as
Yeah,
somebody who is, a news anchor who is mired in world chaos and country
yeah,
chaos all the time,
all the time.
are sports therapy for you?
They are.
Hmm.
I do catch myself sometimes. Where I was, because the apps have made it so much easier to be a sports fan. And I went through like a period where when I started in journalism, where I just couldn't keep up with sports. It
Mm.
just wasn't as easy to be honest, I was covering Obama in 2008, and I completely missed the Philadelphia World Series run. I just missed it.
Wow.
I just didn't. I was covering the election of Barack Obama. That was my job, and I just missed it, and I'm really bummed. But now, because of smartphones and apps, like that would never happen again.
Hmm.
It is a huge amount of therapy for me. I do catch myself thinking like, I'm caring about this baseball game a lot more than any like adult human should care about any game. But, that's okay. I mean, I'm able to walk away from it. Does affect my mood though, in a way that is not that I have to like say, okay, stop. Like, I'm going to be upset unless the Eagles win the Super Bowl. And like, I know the odds of the Eagles making it to the Super Bowl, much less winning it, are not 100%. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
And that will be very, very upsetting to me. But I try to use the sports for the therapy as much as possible. And God knows in this world, uh, we need it. I need it for sure.
Now, you mentioned how it changes your mood, but yet in what was it, 2021, when you all lost to the Chiefs, you still managed to compose yourself enough to interview Patrick Mahomes on your show after he had just beaten your Eagles. What was that moment like as a Philly fan? And then now you have to interview the guy who took a championship from you.
Okay, so first of all, that it's you did your research. That's good. They beat us fair and square. I mean, there was one call that was iffy, but it doesn't matter. Like, it
Right.
doesn't. Like, honestly, our defense fell apart in the second half, and that's just
Mhm.
what it is. And that's why I was happy to see Gannon leave. No offense. I hope he has a nice life and everything, but our defensive coordinator was not rising to the game. Um, the footnote, the caveat on that is my wife is from the Kansas City area, so I live with a Chiefs fan. I'm in love with a Chiefs fan. So I'm not. It's not like I find they are not like an irredeemable team. I can't hate Patrick Mahomes the way that like say Brady
Yeah.
aroused the wrath of Philadelphians. Like I will still, I will if somebody's saying something nice about Tom Brady on Twitter, I will still tweet out that GIF of him missing the ball in the Super Bowl. Except somebody's replaced the ball with the World Series with the Super Bowl trophy with the Vince Lombardi, and it's hit anyway. Childish, very childish, but I will still do that. And then the other thing is, I do this charity thing every year in Kansas City for Children's Mercy Hospital, and so I've actually met Mahomes and Kelsey um, a few times. I don't like they're not my friends or anything, but I've met them, and they're really good guys. So you know, it wasn't as tough as it would have been if it had been Tom Brady. If it had been Tom Brady, that would have been a different interview, I think. I think it would have. I don't know that I could have gotten through. If the Patriots had beaten us in 2018, I don't know that I would have been capable of doing an interview with Tom Brady the way I
You
was with
might have
Mahomes.
tapped out on that one.
Yeah, I don't think that. So don't give me too much credit.
All right. What about if the Cowboys ever won a Super Bowl? Could you do the
I
interview?
just don't. I just don't hate them that much. I mean, like, and also they're struggling so much that, and they honestly like the Cowboys of today are not the Cowboys of when I was growing up, and it was like the Cowboys and Steelers won everything. I mean, it was just like I don't even know the last time they were in. I mean, they don't make postseason a lot. I mean,
Oh,
they're
they're in a drought. That's for
yeah.
sure.
So
They're
it's
they're in a bit of a drought.
yeah. So and also my brother-in-law lives in Frisco, which is right outside Dallas, and that is like
Aha.
that is where the stadium is. That's the whole championship. I've been to games, and they're I don't hate them the way that I did in the 70s when they were so good.
Yeah, because I would think naturally that as being that they're in your division, it's like them and the Commanders that might you know
Yeah, I mean, I love
hurt
beating them. I
right
love
hurt a
beating
little bit if you had to do that, but
I
maybe
love beating them, but I love the Phillies beating the Braves more. Because the
that makes
Braves are
sense. Yeah,
more
that makes sense.
of like a fierce rival kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the Cowboys is just that they have been sort of frighteningly mediocre since, obviously the mid '90s. I mean, they've certainly made the playoffs. Like they just, it's hard to remember. Like they were just a wild card
Yeah.
last year, but they haven't made it past the divisional round in, I think, since the mid '90s. That was the
I
last
just
time.
like I'm on a text chain with my son and my brother-in-law, and my brother-in-law is the Cowboys fan, and like it's just not even that fun
Like it's
to
not fun to
razz them
kick them
anymore
because
because they're
they've been
so
so down.
they're so bad. Like it's just like I feel bad for them. Like I don't even do it. You know what I mean? Like it's just like it's not even a good rivalry. Like they're bad.
Now,
Which and by the way, I've just jinxed it. They're going to beat us now. I mean, like
Here you
They're
go.
going to
Here
beat
you
us at the
go.
Super Bowl or something. I've just done
I don't
it.
think you have to worry about that with this guy.
Well,
You don't have to worry about the
the
Cowboys,
divisions are wrong, but yes, I
right?
mean they're going to beat us.
You don't have to worry about them being in your way. I don't. I
Right.
think this season you're safe.
But you know what I
Um,
mean. I've set.
yeah.
I'm arousing the wrath of the sports gods.
Now, with all this being said, given your love of sports,
Yeah.
was there any point as you were thinking about becoming a journalist that you thought about being a sports journalist?
I don't know enough at all, and in
Mm.
fact, the fact that um, when this posts, my friends from college will make fun of me because I was so not a sports fan in college. And they were, and like for your younger listeners and viewers, like it was so tough to follow sports back then. Like I don't, ESPN first of
I
all
mean,
came around
some
in what?
some of us managed. Jake. I was like,
Well,
some
that's
of us
what they
did.
would say. That's what they
Yes.
would say. But these are the guys who would like go walk to the gas station in college to get a copy of USA Today to go look at the box scores. Right? This is pre-internet, I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
it's much easier now. So I'm a much bigger sports fan now. And like so they will make fun of me for you even asking that question because these are guys who could literally like become sports commentators. I think a couple of them, I'm thinking of Daryl and my friend Hillman, could probably be sports commentators now just because they know so much. And in fact, when I turned 50, my wife threw me a party, and Jeff Zucker, who is a sports lunatic, right? He loves sports. And someday, if the if all is right in this world, like the Dolphins will hire him to be the general manager or something. Like
Mm.
he'll get a job in sports at some point. But in any case, he sat next to Daryl and Hillman, and he's like, "Who are these guys?" Because they know everything about sports. It'd be much more. That question should be asked of them, not of me. But no, I just don't know enough. I mean, like if there were sports teams, if there were sports shows about like the 1980 Phillies, I could probably remember enough about Bob Boone and Tim McCarver and Shake and Bake McBride to like rise to the occasion. But as a general premise, no, I just don't know enough.
So how so what was your path to journalism?
My path to journalism was really it's funny because I started out in um, when I was a kid. I loved journalism. I did like a neighborhood newspaper, just like a mimeographed newspaper. And then I was editor of my high school paper. And then I went off to college and I did a comic strip, but I wasn't a journalist. And I kind of didn't realize how much I missed it or how much I was meant to do it until years later. Like I tried to do the comic strip and then I went to film school and I kind of just fumped my way around in my 20s until I was like, you know what? I started writing freelance stories for City Paper here in Washington and other places. And I kind of like, oh, this is really fun. And in looking back on it, I'm kind of mystified that it took me so long, given how much I liked it when I was in high school. And I'm actually even named after a journalist. My great uncle, who I never met, Jacob Scher, was a Chicago Sun-Times managing editor who taught journalism at Medill. So, I mean, like, it's really kind of bizarre that I was such an idiot about it for so long. But then I started writing for City Paper, and then it just took off from there. City Paper, then Salon, then um, ABC, and now CNN.
At what point did you realize that you or wanted to or should or I don't know if you just kind of organically gravitated to politics? At what point did you realize that was what you wanted to cover?
Well, I was raised in a very political household, and we were just always politically aware about what was going on. I mean, I do have memories of my mom. Not that I was grasping what was going on, but I do remember my mom watching the Watergate hearings on TV. I knew there's a my dad has somewhere a cartoon I did of the mayor, like a political cartoon I did of the mayor of Philadelphia, who was at the time this horrible racist Democrat named Frank Rizzo. And it's just like a little drawing and it says bad Rizzo, bad Rizzo, bad Rizzo, which is, incisive commentary if you're three. And and so I was just always very aware of politics. I just it took me a while to figure out that political journalism was something I really liked.
um, Now, as we've seen how polarizing, obviously, politics has become, I'm wondering what it's like for you as an anchor when you're not on air, particularly since, obviously President-elect Trump had made CNN, um, had a lot of criticisms. I think I'm not even criticisms if isn't even the
Yeah.
word of what he was saying about CNN. It's far more serious than that. Uh, I'm wondering how that impacted your life, and whether or not you have any concerns as he takes office again that CNN will again become his punching bag, which leads to a level of danger for the anchors who are on air.
Well, I don't like animosity towards news media at all from anyone. Um, and obviously, he displayed it quite a bit. It started with CNN. Well, it actually started with like the Des Moines Register. I mean, if you go
Hmm.
back and trace his anger at the media, it starts with like the Des Moines Register. It starts with individual outlets and reporters, and
Right.
then it just grew. And you can even like trace Enemy of the People from, I think it started with CNN, and then it was like, then he just added. So it's really just any news media that tries to hold him accountable at all.
Hmm.
Um, and that's never pleasant to be called the enemy of the people, especially in an age where political violence is a very real thing. That it wasn't fun then, and uh, I don't know what to expect in this new era. He's talked about changing libel laws to make it easier to sue um, journalists. I wish the House and Senate would pass. There's a shield law that's
Hmm.
being
Correct.
proposed that would protect journalists. By the way, that wouldn't just protect mainstream journalists. Like somebody who would benefit it from right now is Catherine Herridge, who's being sued by the Biden administration for not revealing a source for her when she was at Fox. So I mean, like this is just works for journalists. Period. I wish I guess the Republican House wouldn't pass it, but in any case, yeah. I mean, of course, I'm concerned,
Hmm.
and I also think that the number of Republicans who are willing to speak up against the excesses of the Trump administration seems smaller now than it did during his first term. So, yeah, I mean, look, we'll see what happens. I'm just going to cover him and let the chips fall where they may. But separately, that other stuff that he does, whether it's the libel laws or leak investigations or attacking us, yeah, that's not pleasant, but it doesn't affect the job.
Hmm. You said it before a few times in interviews that the job of a journalist is not to be liked. I agree with this wholeheartedly
Yeah,
because
and
that's
I
that's
succeed very much at that part of it.
that is not that is definitely the job. But that being said, it seems like in today's media environment, the level of distrust and dissatisfaction that people have with journalists is probably the highest I've certainly ever experienced in my
Yeah,
career. Um, is this something that you feel like journalists earned, or is this part of a larger sort of cultural issue that has to deal with misinformation and disinformation and those kinds of things?
the answer is yes. I mean,
Hmm.
we have earned some of it, and any journalist who doesn't think that we could have done things better in the last 20 years, let's say, because I think it precedes Trump. I think you got to go back to the Iraq War and failures there. Um, but yeah, we've earned a lot of it. Um, I think there's also a great degree of other parts of this animosity towards journalism that are not of our doing. I think first of all, it's in the um, it is now perfectly acceptable or considered perfectly acceptable for politicians to attack journalists for asking questions and to demonize us as left-wing hacks or right-wing hacks and
Hmm.
or whatever. And that is, I mean, it's not a new thing, but it is. It seems more widespread. And it seems like in the age of the internet and social media and clicks and likes and all that, there is an incentive structure built in for bad faith actors who literally make money attacking, let's say, Maggie Haberman, um, who are not really operating in good faith in terms of their criticism. They just know there is a choir to be preached to, that none of this is this group's fault, whether it's Democrats or Republicans. It's all the New York Times, or it's all, you know, Jake Tapper or whatever. And I think that's part of it too. I'm not um, I'm not complaining about it. It is what it is, and that's just what we have to deal with. But that's part of it too. And you know, you just look at the way that the the Biden White House, and I'm going to give a Biden example here because God knows there are going to be plenty of Trump examples in my future. But you look at the way that the Biden White House reacted to any questions about his age, his frailty, his acuity, his ability to communicate, and it was a very aggressive response. Most of it behind the scenes, most of it the Biden campaign, the Biden White House, ginning up outrage from progressive influencers and Democratic lawmakers to personally attack reporters. And so that's part of it too. Again, I'm not, and yes, Donald Trump is a major part of it. And please, nobody listening should think that I am downplaying that just because I haven't talked as much about it. But like, there's a lot of stuff. And, you know, faith in institutions is down in general. And, you know, I just think we have a lot of work to do in the media to earn that trust back. Part of it is, you know, people like you who you're able to show yourself and reveal more of who you are and explain your thought process and your positions in a longer format that makes your viewers and listeners have more faith in you because they feel like they know you better. And I don't, again, I'm not complaining about this, but I don't really get that opportunity. So that's one of the reasons why I think the Jamels of the world and the Rogans of the world and like people who have longer format are able to achieve more trust
Mm-hmm.
because people feel like they know you better.
Yeah.
Um, and that's something that's people in legacy media like me have to figure out how to negotiate better.
See, I'm glad you said that because that was where my next question was going. I know we're a little short on time, but I would like you, uh, as you know, as part of this election autopsy, people have looked at the influence of podcasters. You know, you have um, a huge percentage of Americans who get their news through podcasts. Joe Rogan has the largest podcast audience, I believe, now, and has had it, I know, on Spotify specifically for the last 4 years. We know that he has a huge audience and
Yeah.
how they're shaping news and they're more influential than, say, your news programs or how 60 Minutes used to be. As a career journalist, what do you think this has done to the industry, whether good or bad? Like, how has the rise of influencers and podcaster having more impact in cutting through with things than traditional news media? How do you feel like that's reshaped our industry?
I mean, first of all, it's like complaining about the weather. It just is. Like you know, whether or not I like it, and I happen to, but whether or not I do is irrelevant. Look, your success, Rogan's success, these are things that happened organically because people liked it. It wasn't like the Koch brothers came in and said we're gonna take this stand-up comedian who likes mixed martial arts and was a bit player on news radio and turn him into a conservative force. Like, first of all, he's not even a conservative force. Like, he's kind of got a way of looking at the world. Sometimes it's conservative. Yes, he endorsed Trump, et cetera, et cetera. But he was like a Bernie guy a few years ago. I mean, like, he's not. I don't know. It's more
Yeah.
complicated than I think. When Democrats say we need to find our own Rogan, it's much more complicated than that. Um, it has more to do with, first of all, you got to meet people where they are if you're a politician or if you're legacy media, and like so, there needs to be more of us going on podcasts and politicians too going on. That's where people are. That doesn't mean there isn't a place for. I mean, Joe Rogan is not going to bring you news from downtown Aleppo, you know, and or like an analysis of it. Or by the way, like he's not going to moderate a debate. I'm not saying he shouldn't, but I'm just saying, like, that's just not going to happen. There still is a role for traditional media. So how do we figure out how to live in this world? What do we do? And how to, like, people are going to podcasts to either for entertainment or for comfort or for information or whatever it is. How do we take advantage of that for our product, which is different? To bring people to our product, or to maybe, do we need to do, I mean, Audie Cornish does a great podcast, but maybe does she need to do more of a Joe Rogan? Not her, but like, I don't want to pick on Audie, she's amazing, but like, maybe do we need to have like a news person doing something
Mm-hmm.
more like that? I don't know, but like, look, this is what people like. Look, personally, I listen to podcasts all the time. I listen to you, I listen to Rogan, I listen to the Lonely Island Seth Meyers podcast, which is just every week they look at one of the digital shorts that they did on SNL 10 years ago and talk about it. Like, that's what I do, you know? So how do we figure that out?
And finally, because not only do I ask people who have graciously agreed to be guests on Spolitics about their favorite athletes and sports memories that made them love sports, I always end the podcast with a messy question. Now,
Okay, do
you
it. Bring
wrote,
it.
yes, let's start some controversy, Jake, right here. All right,
Okay.
now you wrote in a CNN piece about your fandom, and this was following the Eagles' 2018 Super Bowl victory
Yes.
over those Patriots that you love so much. You wrote that when that ball bounced limply into the end zone, I can honestly say that only the joy I experienced at my wedding and the birth of my two children came close.
It's
Be
true.
honest, Jake.
It's true.
Would you rank Philly winning a Super Bowl over your marriage and your children and the birth of your children?
Definitely not over the birth of my children, and
Okay.
definitely not over um the the marriage.
The wedding, though.
I will confess that I find weddings a little, I mean, it's a lot of people, it's a lot of
Mhm.
family, it's a lot of people you don't know. I mean, I love my wife dearly. I'm so happy that we're married, but was I smiling more at the 2018 Super Bowl than
Than you did on your wedding day.
I'm getting a
Yes.
no?
Don't lie,
It was
Jake. You were.
it's close. It's a close call. It's a close call. Let me just put it that way. It's a close call.
America, you decide. Is Jake Tapper telling the truth right now?
It's a
Do you
close
think?
call.
Do you
I will
think
say
Jake
this:
Tapper
the amount I was
smiled more at
smiling,
his wedding or Philly Super Bowl? I'm
the
sorry,
amount
I'm not
I will
buying it,
just say,
Jake.
the amount I was smiling ear to ear for the 24 hours after that Super Bowl victory, which I had never experienced in my life, was amazing. And it is surpassed by the amount I have smiled in my 18 years of marriage to my wife. So the marriage itself, more joyous than the Super Bowl. And that's where I'm going to end that answer.
This is a seasoned married man, ladies and gentlemen. He knew how to effectively backpedal out of that question.